You know, those of us who are looking for a new place to work, or any work, as cisgender, heterosexual people, can forget that we have it a lot easier than others. For the first time since my spouse began her transition 2.5 years ago, she is looking for a new work environment, a new job. And I've been worried for her because although words like equality and anti-discrimination policies are terms that might be listed under a company's policy, you know and I know that it ain't always the truth. According to the Williams Institute, transgender people report high rates of unemployment and very low earnings. And that is just one example of how difficult it is for transgender people in the workforce without touching on discrimination and transgender people of color. Welcome to Straight Wife Trans Life. I'm Lisa, and today I talked to my spouse about her experience job hunting so far. Keep in mind that this is the experience for one transgender person who is educated, has a support system, and began her transition only a few years ago. I will add job-related resources in the episode description for anyone who might need them. Here we go. Once again, joining me today is my spouse. Hello, spouse.
Hello.
So today I wanted to talk about your job search. For the first time as a transgender woman, you are looking for a new job with a new company. Were you nervous starting the job search process?
Yeah, particularly just on the job search, it didn't kind of dawn on me the extra effort and stress it brings to try to do it as a lady now and more as a transgender woman.
Legally, employers are not supposed to discriminate based on gender and race, for example. You are a Latina transgender woman. Do you sense discrimination?
So I think I've been through the discrimination path before. I have discussed with you years ago of jobs where I was told basically passed on promotions. It doesn't mean I wasn't doing my job or anything like that. It was just some very, very subjective thing I feel my manager was seeing. And in general, I think as an immigrant here, I think I've suffered this discrimination on some ways. I remember seeing the pay other coworkers made for the same work, the same position. Mine was lower than my coworkers. That I knew, and that was confusing for me. But other than that, in my current job search, I haven't felt any particular kind of discrimination against me. Maybe it's too early, or maybe I don't see it.
So you are in the technology field, and your interviews involve solving technical problems and explaining solutions and what you could have done differently. When you interview and a company decides to pass or says that they've decided to go with a stronger candidate, does being transgender pop up as a concern now, or do you feel like, yeah, I could have solved that problem a different way. I know what I did wrong?
I do see sometimes. I have had this a few times happen to me already in my time looking. What I see is that I have more concerns that I used to have before I decided to transition. I now have to worry about my voice, about how I'm expressing myself, about how I'm presenting, but I think that's kind of like every woman has to worry about these things, except that I also have to worry about trying to present myself as a full woman. I really want to avoid misgendering or becoming a distraction also on the interview. So I think that has probably distracted me a little bit.
I'm curious because companies aren't usually supposed to talk about families or personal backgrounds. Do you feel like any questions have come up about your background in a way that maybe they're trying to figure out if you are transgender or suspect something?
No, actually, I was just asked once recently with a company that things look like they're going great and probably I will end up taking an offer from them. And this was a single individual asking like, hey, so what do you do outside of work? And I've been on this business for a long time, and I've heard directly from HR lawyers that you should never engage into that sort of conversation with a prospective candidate, because if you end up not hiring that person, they could argue that it was because of discrimination, because they mentioned where they live, and then like it could become a thing of like, well, they come from the area where people of this kind come and we don't like them, or the other protected classes like sexual orientation and such. But I think this is because it's a very small company. I'm almost certain this person has never had this sort of training.
So, a lot of people in the tech industry often use recruiters when they're doing their job search. And you mentioned that one of your recruiters during your search process, you've worked with them before you transitioned, and they haven't connected the dots that you are now female. Did you help the recruiter connect the dots, or do you feel like you don't have to mention that?
Yes, so this is funny. I applied for this one job, I submitted my resume and stuff, and then somebody reached out to me from the company that I applied for the job, wanting to get more information and to set up a little talk so they understand what I'm looking for and what is my latest experience and such. And I recognized their name because it's pretty unique. So when I finally got to talk to her, I told her like, hey, we worked together before at this other company, which is like 8 years ago. And she just said, oh, that's a long time ago. Yeah, I wouldn't remember much about that time. So I just decided to let it rest. It wouldn't have made a difference because she was just a recruiter. She was not like the hiring manager. And she actually took my information to the hiring manager and she was like, oh, looks like it's not quite the profile we want to hire, but I will keep your information. So I just let it be.
Do you feel like anyone that you have spoken to in the interviews, do you feel like they've looked at you funny, or do you feel like they've sensed that you are not cisgender in any way?
I kind of have looked for that and I haven't quite felt like that. I have interviewed with some female engineers and actually some other ladies that are not engineers, and they were very nice and warm, and I feel they were more connected to me than they would have been before transition. But nobody has said anything, nobody has made a comment or a face. And I know when I get like stressed or when I am very deep into explaining something, my voice is not like as great as it may be now, which is kind of good, I think. But yeah, I would like to get to perfection, to never have to worry about like, am I using the right voice? Am I opening my throat too much or pushing air the wrong way? Like, it's stressful. I think in the long run, it has become a lot more natural. But when I am stressed or distracted from doing it, I know I go back. And I really hate it, but can't do anything now.
Do you feel like having the facial feminization surgery last December has helped give you confidence and makes you feel like any other woman now?
It has given me confidence I didn't know I had. Like, I now look at myself on the mirror. Well, not on the mirror, but on these video conferences that I have. Most of my interviews have been through video conference. I see a lady there. Recently, I was at the post office and I caught my reflection on a window and I didn't realize it was my reflection. And I thought, oh, that girl is cute. I wonder, that neck looks very familiar. And then when I look in detail, like, oh, that's myself in the reflection. And that made me feel great. I didn't understand. I usually don't see myself like that person, even when I did it and I am like enjoying it. But at that point, it was very, very affirming.
So how does this work? Do you have to tell your previous employers that you are now female, and do they ask for documentation? Is this necessary for the background or reference check? Because I assume your names would need to match, and not all the companies that you have worked for in the past have your new status information.
This is a thing we all go through as transgender people that change gender and name. So as soon as I received my legal name change court order, I went and filed with the IRS and with the DMV and all these other departments. And then I moved on to get my school records updated. I requested my school to update my name and my gender, and they did quickly. Oh, that's another thing. I went to college in Mexico for my BS, and I went to the US for a master's degree. So I was only able to reach the school here in the US, but I don't think American employers care at all about education outside of the US. Then I had to worry about former employers, and I honestly didn't have the time. I was too busy. So one of the first things I did as soon as I realized I was going to start looking for a new job was put together a list of my previous employers and their contact information and how could I get them to update their records. Usually involves getting a copy of the court order or the updated ID and sending it to them and asking just as any, woman that got married and changed their names. I just changed my name. I used to be this person. Now I am this other person. Please update your records. Here is the document that supports the change. And that's it. But turns out, like, some of my former employers don't exist anymore or were absorbed by a large company that is faceless and doesn't have an easy way to reach by a person like me that wants the records updated. So I will see what happens when the questions come. I already provided references, and my references know of the change. So I think that should go smoothly. And I think my last 3 employers have my records updated, so I hope they don't go much farther because, those companies I can't even reach myself.
Do you have any tips for a fellow transgender person looking for a job after a recent transition?
Yes, as I mentioned, get your school records updated and get your former employers, find what's their HR department email address or phone number. Ask them to update your records. It shouldn't be difficult or a big deal at all. They just need to change their internal system. Doesn't cost them much or anything. I hope I don't have to go through the process of explaining this is my court order that supports my name. And I just want to leave that behind. I want to live my life as the person I am today. That makes me feel great, and I don't see why it should be any different.
Well, thank you for sharing some of your job search details with us, and good luck.
I hope. Bye.